After rising to a 23-year high, mortgage rates have been decreasing for the past 5 consecutive weeks. That's going to save the average home buyer over $150 per month compared to just 5 weeks ago. In addition, the number of newly listed houses increased by 6% compared to a year earlier, which of course is giving more options for home buyers looking to buy a house right now. In today's video, I'll share all the details based on a brand new report from Redfin. And before we get started, if you guys want a real estate agent referral nationwide, then check out my website, which is realestateteamfinder.com, or click on the link in the video description below. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I appreciate you, and let's begin today's video. So here's the latest report from Redfin, just posted on Thursday here. So again, your average monthly housing payment just decreased by more than $150 per month because rates have been decreasing for the past 5 consecutive weeks. On top of that, new listings are actually increasing as well. The biggest year-over-year increase since the summer months of 2021. So housing payments have decreased for the 5th week in a row due to a decrease in rates, not really due to a decrease in prices just yet here. Also, the typical U.S. home buyer's monthly mortgage payment was $2,575 per month during the 4 weeks ended November 26th this year. That's the most recent data we have from them. That's down $164 per month from the peak that was set at $2,739 that was set about 1 month ago. So of course, it's welcoming news if you're a buyer looking to buy a house that rates have decreased from the peak that was set back about a month ago. But having said that, your average monthly housing payment is still up by 13% compared to just 12 months ago. And the reason for that is because prices are higher right now compared to 12 months ago. And on top of that, rates are also higher as well. So according to Redfin's economic research lead, Chen Zhao, she says here that mortgage rates are dropping due to easing inflation and investors betting that the Fed will cut interest rates sooner than expected here. So here's a look at rates according to Freddie Mac on our good Uncle Fred's website here. This is a look at rates over the past 1 year. So right now, this is for the week of November 30th, just posted on Thursday. The average rate for a 30-year fix for people with great credit is at 7.22%. This is a decrease compared to the 23-year high that was set during the week ended October 26th at nearly 7.8%, and has now decreased for 5 consecutive weeks here. Having said that, again, if you're an active buyer looking to buy a house, it's great to see that rates have been decreasing. But when you couple the fact that we have still high prices and still high rates, housing affordability, of course, is still an issue. So for example, 1 year ago, according to Freddie Mac, your average rate was at 6.49%. And again, prices are still up compared to 1 year ago. Also, when looking at the 10-year treasury, as of, noon on Friday, the 10-year treasury has decreased by about 12 basis points compared to Thursday. Now we're at 4.23%. That's approximately the lowest yield on the 10-year since September 1st this year, which coincidentally, that also was the 3-month low for rates as well, for mortgage rates, because according to the Mortgage News Daily as of Friday, the average rate is at 7.09%, the lowest rates we've had going back to September 1st this year. In other words, a 3-month low. FHA and VA loans is around 6.5%. Looking at rates compared to 1 year ago, we were at 6.29%. Therefore, rates have increased by about 80 basis points from 12 months ago. We're still much lower than the peak that was set back in mid-October at 8.03%. So rates have more or less decreased by about 1 percentage point in about 1.5 months. Okay, let's get back to Redfin's report here. For the 4 weeks ended November 26th this year, this data here encompasses 400 plus US metro areas, And of course, it's based on houses being listed for sale and or sold during the time frame. And weekly data goes back through 2015. Let's first talk about the median sale price. That is at $365,000 approximately. That's an increase of 4.2% year over year. And as you see right here, prices are up partly because elevated rates last year were hampering prices in 2022. One thing I noted here, which is right here, is that when looking at their weekly report from Redfin 1 week ago, prices have decreased by about 0.8%. So even though we're up by 4.2%, they did decrease compared to the previous week. So here's a chart showing just that, going back to 2020 here. I really wish they would share 2019's levels in this graph here, but they don't. So in any case, looking at this, prices are up by 4.2%. But as you guys can see here, we are seeing a seasonal decrease ever since the late summer months this year. Whereas last year, prices were decreasing at a much faster clip in July especially. And that's one of the reasons why we're up compared to 1 year ago. And on top of that, prices also decreased fairly substantially in October last year as well, which is of course supporting the year-over-year change in the growth in prices this year, even though we are seeing a seasonal decrease ever since the summer months this year. In regards to home prices at the metro level, Redfin tracks 50 of the most populous US cities here. So the biggest increases compared to 12 months ago was Anaheim, California. Look at that, giant increase. That's crazy. An increase of 19.3%. San Diego up by 13%. Then we have Cincinnati, Miami, and Providence, Rhode Island. Interesting here that the top three metros are up by more than 12%. Wild. In contrast here, the biggest decreases nationwide. Again, Austin, Texas, leading the nation once again, down by 9.2%. A night and day difference compared to these other metros because San Antonio, Texas, in the second spot here, is only down by 1.7%. Then we have Portland, Oregon, Detroit, Houston, Nashville, and Denver. Important note here that these three metros, Houston, Nashville, and Denver, are barely down compared to 1 year ago. But still, we have 7 metros out of the 50 that are experiencing decreases in their median sold price compared to November of 2022. Something I found to be interesting, though, is that when I looked at the previous report from Redfin, there was actually only 4 metros that was down compared to 1 year ago. Now it's down by 7. This is not as bad, though, compared to 4 months ago, because 4 months ago, there was 19 metros that experienced a decrease. Now, again, there's only 7. In regards to your average monthly housing payment, that's $2,575 per month at the current 7.29% rate. That, by the way, was a rate that was set 1 week ago. Now the rate's at 7.22%. So this savings of a decrease of $164 per month when looking or when accounting for the fact that rates have decreased further will actually be improving here. So this number down by $164 per month is likely to be higher when accounting for the dip in rates this week. But still at 7.29%, that's the lowest level in 3 months for this housing payment here. This is a chart showing your average monthly housing payment. Of course, right here in orange is this year. In red is 2022, and here's 2021, as well as 2020. What catches your attention? So what catches my attention here is the payment back in 2020 was under $1,500 per month. Now it's a whopping $2,575 per month to buy a median price home today compared to back in 2020. And of course, one of the main factors why we're seeing a huge uptick in housing payments is because back in 2020 at this time, your average rate for a 30-year fix was at around 3%. Now it's actually over 7%. On top of that, home prices have increased by more than 30% since 2020 as well. Okay, changing gears slightly here, let's talk about pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. new listings, which is a measure of the amount of people listing their houses for sale, then housing inventory, which is active listings. So in regards to pending listings, that decreased by 6.9%, whereas new listings increased by 5.8%. That's the biggest uptick in over 2 years, but the increase is partly due to the fact that new listings were falling big time compared to this time last year. Something worth mentioning though is that, gosh, it was for months and months and months in which the number of pending home sales and new listings were down by double digits on a year-over-year basis. Now that actually got reversed here because pending home sales are decreasing more right now compared to the number of new listings. So contracts being signed, a measure of demand, is falling on a year-over-year basis, where new listings, a measure of new supply in the market, is actually positive right now. What this potentially could mean here is that demand is actually falling faster than supply right now, which of course would put downward pressure on prices in the months ahead here. Of course, I'll definitely keep you posted though, because even though new listings are actually up compared to a year ago, that is due in part to the fact that new listings were falling much faster last year. On top of that, new listings on a month-to-month basis is still decreasing. If new listings were shooting up, of course, that would be a recipe for disaster here. I'll share some charts to kind of explain that though. Active listings, there's approximately 856,000 houses for sale. That's down 7% from 12 months ago, the smallest decrease since June this year. The month supply is at 4.2 months, a slight increase compared to 12 months ago. And of course, we're getting very close to being a more balanced real estate market, according to Redfin here. Let's have a look at the chart here of pending home sales, which is right there. So pending home sales, as you guys can see here, has been below 2022 through 2020 all year, except for, of course, the onset of COVID in 2020 here. But pending home sales has been decreasing more or less in line with last year's levels for several months now. In contrast, have a look at newly listed houses for sale. Back in the spring months and also the summer months, the difference between this year and last year in red was great. So for example, back in approximately June, there was around around 80 or about 90,000 newly listed houses compared to nearly 120,000 last year. And again, right now we have slightly more new listings compared to last year's levels. But again, as you guys can see right here, new listings have been decreasing very, very slightly ever since approximately the summer months this year, and not the sharp pullback in listings that we saw last year. In regards to active listings or housing inventory, that decreased by 7% compared to last year's levels here. We're still higher compared to 2021 though, but still well below the levels we had back in 2020. When looking at pre-pandemic levels, we're down by approximately 35% from 2019. Let's also discuss the month supply because again, that's at 4.2 months. What this means is that if there was no new listings, if new listings basically stopped, out of all the houses currently for sale at the current sales pace, all those houses would be sold in 4.2 months. Historically speaking, in the long run, a more balanced real estate market is in the range of 4 to 6 months. In my personal opinion, it really depends on the rate of increases in the month supply though, in order to determine whether we have a balanced real estate market, a buyer's market, or a seller's market. So for example, a great example of that is last year. So in April last year, let's just say May last year, the month supply was only 2 months. But by the time we hit the middle of November, we were at 4 months. So the month supply more than doubled in less than 12 months, which is one of the reasons why home prices fell so much last year. So even though we only had, or I should say, even though we had less than a 4.5 month supply, home prices decreased greatly. That was because the month supply increased big time in a very short period of time. I mentioned that because I don't think we should have this blanket statement saying that we need the month supply to be over 6 months in order to have a buyer's market in which buyers have an advantage over sellers. In my opinion, it really depends on the rate of increases and also the duration of the increase or decrease in order to determine whether we have a balanced buyer's market or a seller's market. Of course, please leave me a comment below with your thoughts regarding that though. Let's also have a look at the percentage of houses that sold within 2 weeks of being listed for sale. That was at 34%, not too much higher, actually higher compared to last year's levels. Last year, this time, 30% of houses that went under contract within 2 weeks. Now it's at 34%. On average, houses are also selling faster compared to 2022 as well. Days in the market's at 35 days. This is a time frame when a house gets listed for sale until they accept an offer from a home buyer. And also, it's also based on only sold houses as well. So days in the market's at 35 days, faster compared to last year when days in the market was approximately 37 days. But houses still taking slower to sell compared to 2021 when days in the market was around 30 days. And lastly, let's have a look at the average sale price to final list price ratio. That ratio is at 98.8%. This means over the previous 4 weeks, out of all the houses that sold, they sold for 1.2% below the seller's final list price. This is down from the peak this year that was set back in July, which of course is normal to see this percentage increase in the summer months. But back in July, that percentage was 100.5, which means on average, houses were selling for about 0.5% over asking. Now they're selling for about 1.2% below. It's also higher compared to 2022 though. Last year at this time, that ratio was approximately 98.4. Something I actually just noticed, and I'll try to email, or I will email Dana here, is that the, this is so annoying. Anyways, the graph here is totally off. So 98.8 is right here. However, this is 99.0. So at 98.8, the line should be right here, whereas last year, it should be about right here. So I don't know what's going on here, but the chart here is off. But at 98.8, that is the actual percentage according to them right here, 98.8. So the graph is a little bit off. Anyways, I'll try to email her and see if she'll revises. But in any case, houses on average are still selling about 1.2% below the seller's final list price. What's your biggest takeaway from today's video? Mine is the fact that new listings are up compared to last year's levels. Even though we are seeing a seasonal decrease, it's quite the difference between newly listed houses for sale versus pending home sales. Pending's down, whereas the number of newly listed houses is experiencing an increase. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the end of the year looks like, especially in the spring months last year, to see if we get into an environment in which active listings, new listings are more or less on par with pre-pandemic levels. Of course, I'll definitely keep you posted on the latest developments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and of course, for supporting my YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Also, check out that link below if you guys want a real estate agent referral. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you in the next video.